the moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Yeah, let's get into it, gentlemen. Today's episode has a bit of an international flavor.
International? They were in Paris. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll talk about that. We do have some news.
So what do we got?
We got to start off with the news? All right. Well, Mike brought this to my attention, so we're going to talk about this, which is apparently there is a new Walking Dead spinoff. It looks like Scott Gimple and Matt Negrete are going to be showrunners, and it's going to feature two young female protagonists and focus on the first generation to come of age in the apocalypse as we know it.
So I think this is maybe a tween drama. So there'll be a lot of, does he like me? Is he late because of zombies, or he doesn't like me?
Maybe they could have like a semi-zombie love romance thing going on.
Riverdale?
I'm not feeling this already. I'm not feeling.
But isn't that what Fear the Walking Dead started out as, a prequel?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and then they immediately made the time jump to line it up with
Fear the Walking Dead promised that we will show you how this thing started, and they did for all of 2 episodes, and then boom, then we're right into it again.
So they say some will become heroes, some will become villains. In the end, all of them will be changed forever. Yeah, because once you get bit by a zombie, you forever change.
That could be said about any of the shows, Fear or The Walking Dead.
I don't know. Are we excited? I am so. I hate to say it because the show was so great for so long, but I've stopped watching, and I feel bad about that. But it's just not even on my radar anymore. And what happened to these Rick movies we were supposed to get?
I know.
No word.
Nothing. Not a word. So for all of you deadheads out there, hopefully that's exciting. I want to bring this up because we're all the same age. We all grew up with Hanna-Barbera and Sid and Marty Krofft.
Yes.
And the Banana Splits has a new movie out. Have you seen the trailer?
A new movie out? Really?
Well, it's being released. So the trailer's dropped for the Banana Splits. No, Jim, you haven't seen it?
No. Is this animated or is it live action?
Oh, no. This is the original costumes. Except for the fact that they're homicidal maniacs and they kill people.
Wait a second. Is this a joke or is it?
It's Sci-Fi Channel has created this Banana Splits trailer, and it is rated R for horror and gore. We have our 4 main characters. Who are they? Fleagle, Bingo, Snorky, and what was the lion's name? Drooper. The look on your faces. No. Anyways, yes.
How is this news?
So, because this is horrible, I love the Banana Splits. My parents took me to go see the Banana Splits. It is probably one of the most happiest memories of my life, and they have turned them into homicidal, crazed, animatronic maniacs.
Now, wait a second. Let's go back a little bit. Your parents took you to see the Banana Splits. Was this a show?
It was a live show at Eldridge Park in Elmira, New York. And I remember that's a 45 to an hour drive for us as, growing up. It was a big to-do. It was in an open park, and they were on a stage, and it was a stage show. And I just remember not being close enough to the stage for my taste. I wanted to get as close to these creatures as humanly possible.
Did you get autographs?
No, I never got anywhere near them. Even my memory of them, they were little tiny things. They were closer on my TV than they were at this place.
There were more people there than just you and your family?
Yeah, there was a lot of people. It was like an open party. You don't have fond memories of the Banana Splits, Mike.
No, I do not.
No.
Now, I have to say that Puff and Stuff made much more of an impression than the Banana Splits did.
Yeah, remember, I think I brought it up at one point that Tim Burton taking over like an HR Puff and Stuff would be brilliant.
Yes.
But HR Puffin stuff was kind of bizarre to begin with. I mean, all Sid and Marty Krofft stuff has that really kind of like that dark, I just smoked a giant doobie edge to it. But these are the banana splits. And I guess the big complaint is, do you guys familiar with the video game Five Nights at Freddy?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
okay,
my son
that's
was
basic. All right, well, that's
fan.
basically what this is being compared to, which is they didn't have the rights to that. So they just took these 4 characters and took the exact same storyline as Five Nights at Freddy. But it's not being released in the theaters. It's going directly to Sci-Fi Channel. And then I think it's going to drop on disc and streaming afterwards.
The plot of Five Nights at Freddy's is like, it's basically a haunted Chuck E. Cheese. Where it's
that's kind of, well, yeah, I got the impression they were people in suits, but I guess they're being played up, they're animatronic. Okay. And the storyline is, this kid is obsessed with them. The parents buy him tickets to go see the live show. So this could have actually happened to me. And somehow they revolt and start killing all the adults. And it's just blood and mayhem.
So maybe there's a little Children of the Corn element to this as well.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm very distraught over it. But I'll probably still watch it.
Yeah, this is getting more and more interesting to me as you speak about it.
Yeah, so we will share the trailer on our Facebook page because it is something to behold. If you have any affection for these characters, you'll be appalled. Oh, boy. Comic book news. Let's talk DC for a little bit because we got a Wonder Woman movie coming out next year. But apparently, this The New Gods, which was Jack Kirby, right, Mike?
I think it was Jack Kirby. I have no background on this at all.
I think, yeah. So it's like Apocalypse and some of these other. I'm not a big DC guy either. But you brought up the fact that they're bringing in this guy, Tom King, who is a comic book writer, to pen this movie. It's interesting because DC has done a much better job of kind of integrating those comic creators into their TV and movie properties. I think the biggest is Jeff Johns, who used to write The Flash and Superman and a bunch of other stuff. Justice League maybe, being brought in as executive producer and writer on The Flash. So Marvel hasn't really done this. Marvel will give credit to their comic creators, but they haven't really had them involved per se. So this could be interesting. A comic guy actually writing a comic movie. This could be good.
Well, it keeps the criticism down, right? Because you can't say it's not with the comics when the actual comic writers.
True. But we all know how movie making goes, and the road is paved with good intentions.
Did anybody remember that Stephen King directorial debut, Maximum Overdrive?
We got to watch that one day. Just for the green goblin.
The green goblin truck, yeah.
And then we'll end on this, which is actually is going to tie in a little bit to our confessional, which is Harry Potter, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, just opened up their newest ride. And it's supposed to be the longest, fastest roller coaster on the East Coast. Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Say that 5 times fast. Do you know the wait time is 10 hours? 10 hours! Come on! That's insane.
That's more than the park is actually open in a day.
People are arriving.
How is that possible?
People are arriving at 6 a.m. to queue up for a park that doesn't even open until 9.
How do you get in?
For a ride that's less than 3 minutes. That's crazy.
I wouldn't do it.
That's insane.
Right. You pay $80 to ride one ride.
Yeah. I mean, that's even worse than Galaxy's Edge.
It's got to be locals that maybe have season passes or something, right? Why would you waste a whole day pass for Universal to wait in line?
It boggles my mind. Is it that great of a ride?
I don't know.
They really tapped into something? I don't know.
Apparently the coaster itself is like a mile long. And it does go through a lot of scenery. They put in a forest for the tracks to go.
Yeah, and I see that you see Cerberus and a couple of other things going on there. But still,
But if it is, as you say, the fastest on the East Coast, how can you see this stuff? That's
true. All I got to do is go on YouTube because I'm sure someone has videotaped it.
Yeah,
and posted it up there. I just got to watch their video and be like, all right, I'm good.
Now, apparently, they dismantled the existing coaster, Dueling Dragons, to build.
Oh no. So, well, that was like one loop, right? It was pretty small.
It was, and they really kind of retconned that into Harry Potter world, and they just didn't take it down.
Oh, gotcha.
There's dragons in Harry Potter. We could do this. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that existed before the Harry Potter.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
I've actually got a bit of news.
All righty.
You guys may have seen this over the past week, but they have confirmed that it wasn't just the midichlorians that conceived Anakin Skywalker.
Who?
According to Vader Volume 2, Issue 25, Darth Sidious himself, the Emperor, manipulated said midichlorians into Shmi Skywalker to conceive Anakin. So
Did he slip her a
was
Mickey?
behind the entire thing. That is how.
So listen,
to be.
today's Father's Day. Who's your daddy? Emperor Palpatine, apparently.
Apparently so, yes. And I like that a little bit better than just random midichlorians.
No, he Palpatined her. Nice. I like it.
So he is Luke Skywalker's grandfather, basically.
Unbelievable. Well, we know he's coming back because we heard his maniacal laugh.
Yes.
Maybe
So
this
we
will
can have a
all
whole
be
big
revealed.
dad reunion. That'd be awesome. A little Force ghost Anakin.
Yeah, and depending on the parentage of Rey, could be her great-grandfather.
Here we go. So once again, everybody in the universe is
They all got to be related.
Force sensitive. Is just yeah. So that's it. That's my news.
So we are reviewing this week Men in Black International.
I have my passport. J and K are not mentioned. You see them in a portrait in the background, and that's it.
It's like the ceiling, the Sistine Chapel of Asgard, just like when you
Right.
see in Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
You see all these, classical paintings of Thor and Loki and Odin, and then, underneath it are the true original paintings of Hela and Odin. But
Right.
here you've got the same type of pictures hanging up in High T's office
High tea.
of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, and really, and like it's almost like stained glass type portraiture.
No, so go to this extent. So you bring this up, which is, if this is a secret organization, who painted those? did they kill them? I guess they had them paint them and then just flash their minds. Just
Well, they probably do have access to Michelangelo in some way or form.
maybe because they are constantly watching. We've seen that's a running joke through all these movies, which is the alien surveillance, and it's always like celebrities, Michael Jackson and Prince and. Some of the other, we saw a couple this movie as well that made sense. And one of them was, who was the guy who played Lando?
Glover.
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover. He's like, yeah.
Also the Prowler from the new Spider-Man series.
You mentioned Men in Black 3, which you didn't see, but Emma Thompson's character, she carried over from that. She was in that as well.
She was, okay.
She was.
Right. So basic setup for this movie. As Jeff said, it is really kind of a reboot because you're starting from scratch. We've got the character of Molly, played by Tessa Thompson. Was that her name, Molly?
Yeah. Molly, or M, as we...
as when she becomes a Man in Black, she becomes Agent M from that point on.
And they kind of did go out of their way to kind of push down that man-woman thing. So down our throats.
But as a child, Molly is sleeping one night, and her parents are visited by two Men in Black that we've never seen before. So if you think you're going to get a Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones cameo,
no, you're right. They didn't even pretend that they were them.
No,
which would have been at least fun.
Molly's parents are neutralized. Is it a neuralizer?
It's a neuralizer.
Neuralizer.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're neuralized, but Molly sees the whole thing because she's harboring the cute little alien guy that the Men in Black are looking for up in her bedroom, unbeknownst to her because it's hiding amongst her plush toys.
Yeah, he's called a foreshadower.
Yes, he is. Now, did we remember what his actual name was?
No, but I called it.
Starts with a T.
There's too many names in here for us.
There is a lot of,
The cute little blue guy. He gives her a few words of alien thanks, and then he jumps out the window. Now, I really have to shout out a Prince Purple Rain reference. Molly's father apparently is a big Morris Day fan. The fact that he quotes Morris Day's quote,
"Let's have some action. Let's have some asses wiggling. I want some perfection."
one of the classic lines from Purple Rain.
He was practicing in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. So Molly witnesses the whole thing. Her parents get their memories erased by the Men in Black. So for the rest of her life, up until, whatever age she is in the movie, she's been looking for the Men in Black. She's been trying to get jobs with police, with FBI, but she's only doing that to try to make her way to the Men in Black. And nobody, of course, knows what she's talking about. And she finally happens upon them that she's got some kind of a GPS for identified flying objects that are coming to Earth. She traces one said object to a spot under the Brooklyn Bridge, was it? She breaks through the camouflage that Men in Black have had there, and it wasn't that hard to break through it. All you had to do was walk
right
through
it. She saw the birds fly through, and she's like, oh, there it is.
And she actually talks her way down there. So at first they're about to neuralize her and send her on her way, but then she argues her way out of it. She found them, and Agent O, as played by Emma Thompson, is curious about this upstart. And so they decide to give her a shot. And that's the basic setup of this movie. She is a probationary Men in Black for most of it. They team her up with Chris Hemsworth, who is Agent H.
And he's supposedly the best agent in the field, and yet we never really are shown why that is. Because he's a washed-up kind of screwball.
And everything he does, he kind of screws up. But then again, all the other characters are telling him or whispering around him throughout the whole movie that he's changed. And we find out a little bit later why. So the bad guys in this are the Hive, and these are aliens that are looking for a MacGuffin, which is the most powerful weapon in the universe, which happens to be on Earth. And
is it called the Tesseract?
I don't know what it was called. Was it called anything?
No, I don't think it had a name. It didn't even need. You're right. It's a MacGuffin.
So the Hive are looking for this. Men in Black are looking for this, and it's revealed a little bit into the movie that there's a mole in Men in Black who's also working his own angle. So, and it becomes pretty obvious who that is. So most of the movie is Agent M and Agent H on the trail of this super weapon. It is provided to the agents by a character by the name of Vungus. Vungus Among Us.
I thought it was fungus, but it's Vungus.
Yeah, it's Vungus with a V.
Yeah, and there's a little scene where they meet up with him. He has a secret rendezvous with Hemsworth because he's got a past with H. They're like drinking buddies, and they meet at this club, and that's where you're introduced to the two alien twins. No, we see them earlier, and they're really cool effect because they're almost like galactic looking. They're like nebulous, but they got the glowing eyes, and they've got really cool powers.
And they know how to dance.
Now, these two guys, you think that these are the Hive, but it turns out that they're not the Hive. That they're also
we were told they were the Hive because apparently the Hive integrates and takes over all these worlds that they infest.
And what you see these twins doing just that. By melting an innocent bystander.
Yeah, that was a rough scene. That was a little gooey.
So they're not exactly good guys themselves, but they're not the Hive, it turns out.
No, right. Yeah. No, like you said, everything is a parlor trick.
We also have, our comedic sidekick, which is Pawny in this case.
Pawny.
Steve.
Yes.
Steve called himself Steve at one point, right? Kamal, I'm going to butcher this name.
He's from The Big Sick.
Kamal Nanjiani. He was funny, but we can get into this a little bit, which is, part of the charm of the original was that all these aliens were practical. Rick Baker, who came out of ILM, Star Wars, Cantina Creatures, whatnot, American Werewolf in London, manufactured and made these creatures. They were real-world practical people in suits or animatronic puppets. Everything in this is CG. And so they, especially Pawny, because he's like 3 inches high. So I think they lose a little charm.
But it wasn't like he was Jar Jar. He was tolerable, at least. So I did think that he served his purpose here.
I heard that Palpatine is Jar Jar's father, by the way.
So let's talk about our reactions to this. Now, what did we think about Chris Hemsworth, our Thor, joining the franchise of Men in Black?
I thought the two of them had really nice chemistry. Obviously, they've played together in Thor Ragnarok. I was waiting. There's a joke in the trailer that's not in the movie where I think Hemsworth makes a mention that have we worked together before or something like to that effect.
Oh, okay.
As an in-joke. And there's one Thor in-joke, and that was probably the only laugh-out-loud moment I had in the whole movie, and that was also in the earlier trailers, which is at one point he's getting his ass kicked, and he picks up a hammer and throws it, and the bad guy immediately catches it. And he's like, well, that was a good catch. So that was about as close as you got to a Thor reference. Hey, listen, I'm all for these guys moving out of their superhero comfort zone and doing. He's likable. Yeah. He's a likable kid. He's nice on the eyes. He's funny. We've seen that in the Ghostbusters reboot.
He's charming.
Yeah, even the alien ladies were oohing and on over him. So
now, Jeff, as you said, his character, he's kind of vacuous, and the reason being is you find out a little bit later that that's purposeful because he's been neuralized himself.
Neuralized, yeah. So you open the movie with this hive invasion in Paris, and it's him and Liam Neeson's character High T. and they keep like they're held on a pedestal as high as J and K. They defeated an alien invasion with nothing more than the two of them and their whatever HK7 neutralizers. And when she finally says, all right, but how did you do it? Like, that's all he can say. And that's when they kind of came to the realization that he doesn't remember what really happened.
Which is kind of pointed out to you if you're paying attention, because in the beginning of the movie, they don't show you the whole battle on the Eiffel Tower.
Right. And they end up right back at the Eiffel Tower. And I saw this movie with my son, and he pointed out, he goes, did they really just park in the exact same spot that they did 20 years prior? And the camera pans up and they're in the exact same spot that they were in the beginning of the movie. And I'm like, that's some good parking right there. This is serviceable, but easily forgettable. I feel like I got neuralized at the end of this because some of the stuff I had to go back and look up. I'm like, wait a minute, did that happen in this movie?
Was there an end credit? Because I know I didn't stay.
I didn't sit through. I texted you and you're like, I didn't sit through it. I'm like, well, then neither am I. And it was funny because they did go to the extent of picking up the same font and title graphics that they'd done from the original. So they carried that through. And it was a Danny Elfman score, which was really nice. So it did have a little bit of the charm of the old one, you know, executive produced by Spielberg, Amblin Entertainment. So they did have a little, it just, it's forgettable. If it's super hot outside and the theater has AC, by all means, spend 2 hours in here and just turn off your brain. It's silly. It's not.
I think my favorite alien in this was the beard alien.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even put him in my notes. That was kind of funny. And he shows up again later, so that was cute.
That was,
but like even like you said, the beginning where she encounters the alien, and then later on they're confronted with this other character, Riza, who she's like this intergalactic drug dealer that H had a past relationship with. Rebecca Ferguson. I don't know who the actress is, but and she's got a bodyguard. And the minute I saw him, I leaned into bed and I'm like, that's the stupid alien she encountered at the beginning of the movie. And sure enough, he's ready to kill them, and she puts two and two together, and he realizes it's Molly, and they exchange whatever alien phrase that he said to her. And how would you remember that from 8 years old? I would have had to write it down.
Yes, you would have had. But again, that was the life-changing moment for her. So maybe she did write it down.
Maybe. I mean, the sound effects were very impressive. That's what gets you into the theater. I don't know. Yeah. Did you know that this was supposed to be a Jump Street crossover?
What?
Yeah. This was supposed to be a Channing Tatum, Jonah Hill, Jump Street franchise crossover. That's what this was initially set up to be. Yep.
A Men in Black movie.
Yep. Yeah. The two franchises were to cross over.
So in what way?
Which I may have enjoyed more so, because those 21 Jump Street and 22, listen, they have nice chemistry together.
What was supposed to happen? We were going to get cameos from Channing Tatum and...
No, not cameos. They were going to be the stars of the movie. They were going to be straight up. It was going to be a crossover. Yeah, just like when you're going to be DC and Marvel bringing their characters in.
So then which franchise would survive? Would it be Jump Street or would it be Men in Black?
No, I think they both establish that they're both in the same universe. It wouldn't be like one dies. They would probably fight side by side to take out aliens or whatever.
I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, it is a lot to take in. Because then if you do another 21 Jump Street, 25 Jump Street or whatever, now all of a sudden they just keep moving down the street, right? Every sequel, they just keep moving a block. Then you'd establish that there's aliens, and they probably just get neuralized at the end, and they'd be none the wiser.
That's true, yeah. Then they would be able to go right into
on, and we as the audience member would be like, we know what happened. So the two writers of this actually are set to write that Masters of the Universe now. Take that for what it's worth.
Now here's the big spoiler. And this is not much of a spoiler. If you sit through the first hour of this movie, I think you can work this out yourself. That the actual
it's all telegraph
in Men in Black is the big boss, High T, Liam Neeson himself. Now, whenever he speaks at this point, I cannot get bad cop, good cop out of my head from Lego Movie. Whenever I hear him,
it's true.
This is the biggest threat Men in Black has ever faced. Meet your new partner.
And it appears to me that Liam Neeson goes to the same dentist that George Washington did, because he has a lovely set of pine choppers, I think.
Hey, Bob, I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down another cherry tree with my little hatchet.
All right.
Wow, that's a great tie-in, though, because when Denzel Washington, who stars in our classic feature, when he first started in the movie industry, one of the agents he met with gave him $10,000 and said, before you do anything, go get your teeth fixed. And that does drive me nuts. Every movie, people got perfect teeth. And it's like, that's not Austin Powers. And even by the second movie, his teeth were fixed. If you go back and watch that first movie, they were horrific. And then in the second one, he got them fixed. But this is based, Marvel owns this.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they must have sold it off.
Yeah, they bought out because this is a Malibu comic. Malibu they were big in like the 90s, early 90s. They had a couple series, the X-Mutants, I think, Ultra Force, Exiles, and obviously this Men in Black. And then, the glut of the 90s stepped in and they started killing off their titles, and Marvel bought them. So technically it's not an MCU, but it's a Marvel property. So it probably falls in with like that, Deadpool, Fantastic Four, early Spider-Man movies. It's. I
wonder if Marvel gets closing credit, since I didn't
see any Marvel mention, but it's been reported over the years that people have inquired, are you ever going to bring these properties back and do something with them? And I guess the unofficial word is that the way that the contract and that the deal was made is that these original creators would be owed like 5%. And so that would be a massive undertaking. Like if you made a movie like this based on these characters that were created by Malibu, to go back and start cutting checks for all these guys that had a part in it 20, 30 years ago. So I don't know. It's been refuted that that's not the reason they've done anything with these other characters, but interesting.
So you're saying Agent H could have actually been Thor in this movie?
That's true. He could have been.
So yeah, I thought, as we said before, it was a diversion, and it is served very well by Tessa Thompson and Chris Hemsworth. Even though they don't have much to do, I think their chemistry and just their general likableness carries this through. I enjoyed it. Nothing more, nothing less.
Little too on the nose Back to the Future ending there, though. She takes control of the car, it turns into a flying vehicle, and it flies right into camera. Thank you. I want to hear a little Huey Lewis in the news, buddy.
A little tip of the hat to Back to the Future, right?
Tip of the hat. That's called just lazy writing.
So what kind of buckets are we giving Men in Black? Now let's also think of it this way. This is another one of these movies that in recent weeks we've been seeing the reviewers just rip it to shreds. And again, I'm seeing the headline franchise fatigue, which is like a catchphrase.
It's just a go-to. Yeah, it's a go-to.
Whenever something doesn't do as well, franchise fatigue. Nobody wants to see this. And then, it just perpetuates it, because then you say that and then truly nobody wants to see it. So again, we really have to say, please, if you had any intention of seeing this, don't let anybody, least of all us, sway you from doing that. Please go and see it.
No, listen, we don't purport to be movie critics. I didn't go to school to be a movie critic. This is just three guys sitting around a diner talking after we saw a movie.
Yeah, that's all.
Just because I didn't like it doesn't mean I'm right.
I think I liked it better than you guys did.
I did enjoy it. I'm going to give it 3.
I like the snappy dialogue between C and H. And
I did like his character because he was such a dick and he was a little bit more out there compared to the other characters, and he was so over the top that it was like, look at me, I'm the bad guy.
For me, sort of the perfect summer movie. I'll go 4.
Wow.
Isn't it?
That's up there with your Dark Phoenix review.
That is an endorsement.
I like it.
I'm going to go a little bit. I'm going to go 2 3/4.
Oh. 2 3/4. All right. Listen, that's a fair. So it's like 3 1/4 in between. We got somewhere.
No, but I'm glad we have a 4 on here, because I really want to refute anything a reviewer says, especially after looking what's out there in the media in the past 3 weeks. That we had favorable reviews for this, for Dark Phoenix, and for Godzilla King of the Monsters from various TMI members. So there you go. In honor of Men in Black, I have resurrected an old concession stand ad in which an alien comes to visit the drive-in. But before we get there, let's talk about Podcoin for a bit, which is our new favorite podcast app. And it does not cost anything. All you have to do is download the app, and you earn points from listening, just like you would earn points on let's say, an Amazon Chase Visa credit card. You earn points towards various gift cards like Amazon or Starbucks, or if you'd rather give to charity, you can earn points towards charity as well.
I'm banging out my points right now because I'm looking to donate to this Books for Poor Kids.
We've attached ourselves to this charity because we use our local libraries to a great extent in looking at the movies that we review for this very podcast. So we thought it would be very apropos for us to choose this charity. And all you have to do, there's 3 steps. First, download the Podcoin app right now on your phone. Then use the code TMI NerdKind to get 300 Podcoin points just for signing up.
Which is actually a lot. 300 is actually a lot because I've been listening for quite some time now, and I think I've only got 200 and change.
And then the last step is subscribe to us and listen to TMI every Wednesday, and then you're going to get points. So let's go to the concession stand, and let's come back and discuss our classic feature.
Yes, sir. May I help you?
I'd like 2 of those, please.
Hot dogs? Yes, sir.
And 3 of those. And 1 of those. And 5 bars of these. And a cup of that nice hot liquid.
Coffee. Coming right up.
Oh, and 2 bags of those peculiar white puffy material.
You mean our crunchy popcorn? Shall I wrap that for you, sir?
Oh, that's all right. My saucer's just outside.
They come from miles to enjoy our intermission.
We are back. And this week, again, we tried to tie in a classic with our main feature, which was Men in Black.
And this was Mike's choice.
Should we go alien movie? Should we go amnesia? And Mike hit upon a novel idea.
Which was, it was available on HBO. So I thought we should.
Yes.
I didn't find it on HBO. Was it? Did you watch it on HBO?
It was on HBO or Showtime.
I couldn't find it. I got it from my library, and they had it. Like, I ordered it last Sunday, and it was ready for me Monday. So it was waiting for me. No one else was watching it.
But Jim, make the connection for us.
Okay, so this is Deja Vu. So there is a tenuous connection to the nebulizer in Men in Black, where you get your memory erased. This isn't actually a memory erasure type of a movie, but it is going back in the past to change the future, to change your memory. Well, not really your memory. I don't know where I'm going with this, but
I enjoyed this. I'm happy we watched this because this is kind of a little bit out of left field. You think you're watching one thing and it becomes something else.
Yes.
I liked it. 2006 this came out. Deja Vu.
Deja Vu. And this is a classic Denzel Washington.
Oh, he was in his heyday.
He is so likable in this movie.
Oh my God. It's so funny you wrote that because he is cool in any movie. I don't think even when he plays a bad guy.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, he's just so suave.
And he dominates the screen whenever he's in a scene. It's just, you cannot take your eyes off this guy. And his delivery of every line in here is just, it's either heartbreaking or it's laugh out loud.
Yeah.
There's a reason he's the movie star that he is.
I think you got your hands full breaking this one down, though.
I'm not even going to attempt to break it. I'm just going to give like the barest TV guide overview of this movie. There is a terrorist attack on a ferry, which has do we know how many people were on this ferry?
I think they said something like
200. There were 300.
Was it that many? It's a really chaotic opening scene too.
Yeah.
It takes place. It's in New Orleans and it takes place after Katrina.
All these Navy officers that are taking leave, they're getting off of their carrier.
But they were getting off something and going onto this ferry.
To go into New Orleans. And some of their families are there. There's kids on this ferry.
There was a school bus. It was like Mardi Gras. I think Mardi Gras was going on.
So a homegrown terrorist, just in the vein of the Oklahoma bomber, has put a car bomb on this ferry. And it blows up and it kills almost everybody on board. And now this is a Jerry Bruckheimer film.
Yeah, which immediately makes you think, all right, I know what kind of movie I'm going to watch. Because it's directed by Tony Scott as well.
And Tony Scott, who is, famous for Top Gun. Tony Scott, Jerry Bruckheimer, they don't really know subtlety. They don't do subtlety very well. Because right when this thing blows up, this ferry, you see bodies on fire, slow motion, flying through the air. It's like a terrible scene.
Yeah.
So that is the setup of the movie. That's the catalyst of the events of this movie. So Denzel's investigator from the ATF comes in, and he's trying to figure this whole thing out. And he starts working with this team,
Kilmer,
an FBI agent played by Val Kilmer.
FBI stands for Fat Batman.
This was he wasn't that bad in this movie.
He wasn't that bad, but he was bigger than he has been.
He was bigger than he had been.
I think he was underutilized, to be honest with you.
In order to wrap his head around this tragedy, Denzel Washington's character, who is Doug.
Yeah, he goes out of his way to Carlin. Carlin is how he pronounces
it. The emphasis is on the Lynn, Carlin, rather than, George Carlin.
Like it was hyphenated or something.
So he starts to view all this surveillance video of events taking place around the ferry to try to piece this puzzle together. And
like you said, he's ATF, which is alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. That's what it is.
And there's a scene in here that it was very reminiscent of that classic Tom Cruise moment in War of the Worlds, where he's the only guy that sees the birds flocking to the Martian ships. There's no shields. Look at the birds, man. Look at the birds. Right. No other soldier, within a 2-mile radius notices this.
Now they're all looking down.
The hero, Tom Cruise. So we get a similar scene where Denzel finds on surveillance video the nearby bridge, and there's one guy that's parked his motorcycle looking before the actual ferry blows up, looking at it. Right. And of course, Denzel's the only one that noticed, hey, there's a guy there on the bridge looking at this. He's got
what's he doing?
Yeah.
He's peeing.
So all this surveillance causes him to work with Val Kilmer's FBI agent. Then we get this other agent. Was he FBI, played by Adam Goldberg, who kind of looked like he was Bigfoot from the $6 Million Man episode?
Yes, yeah, and you also have Bruce Greenwood, who's Commander Pike in the new Star Trek reboot.
So this is where the movie gets very weird.
20 minutes in, this movie just goes wonkville, because you think you're watching a certain type of movie. Oh, and the guy who played Foggy, that kid who plays Foggy in Daredevil was in there.
He's in there. Yeah. Probably about 30 pounds lighter than he is in Daredevil.
Yeah, right. He was Foggy-like.
So, this movie takes a complete left turn. Nothing really to do with the actual bombing itself, but this team has been using surveillance footage, satellites. I'm not really sure how the whole thing works. I'm not sure if...
And I initially called BS on this. I'm like, there's no way in the world that there's this level of technology. But do you remember the movie Enemy of the State with Gene Hackman and Will Smith?
Yeah.
Same technology, same director. So Scott directed that as well, but yeah.
This team can actually look into the past live. You can look into the past as it's happening using all these satellites, and they try to explain it at one point, and that's when Denzel really shines. He's like, whoa.
Found a way to fold space back onto itself.
We're used to viewing space as flat, right? Like this piece of paper. To see something from a distance, light has always had to travel the long way across the flat space in between. But given what I was trying to explain, we could fold the space, bring the target closer to us, create what's known as an Einstein-Rosen bridge, otherwise known as a wormhole.
You're talking science to me.
And he's like, does this make sense to you? And he's like, yeah. And he goes, no, this doesn't make any sense.
What's the feel? That broached the feel right there. That broached the feel right there. That's what broached the feel. Now, you want to tell me what the hell this thing is? It's not surveillance, Paul. It's not electronic thermal imaging. You guys have figured out a way to look into the past, yes or no?
No.
You're lying. You're lying,
I've
and
told
you know
you everything I
can. She
can.
saw it, Paul. I pointed this thing at her just now, and she responded to it from 4.5 days ago. Explain that to me.
And they refer to, because it's like 7 satellites that they're all bouncing around. And I did a little bit of research, and I guess this technology does exist.
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say
what?
Maybe not to this sensational level. I mean, they're going into girl's house. You're watching her take a shower.
I know you can look through walls. You can look through ceilings, and
it's. And they called it Snow White. And we just recently watched something where the code name for something was called Snow White, and I couldn't remember what it was. But you go back, they can only look back 4 days and 6 hours. Is that what it was? So what they're looking at takes place long before, because what we didn't bring up was the fact that they found a dead girl, severed fingers, she's burned, but then you realize that she was killed before the explosion.
But her body was made to look like she was killed.
She was on, right. Yeah, and I'll call it right now that she was only hired because she played a really good dead girl. Because you see her dead first, and then you start getting introduced to her. I think she was good. I'm like, imagine laying on that table and just pretending you're dead, laying there staring.
Paula Patton is her name.
Paula Patton, okay. But I think she got that role because she was a good dead girl. But you're right, because then it goes, all of a sudden they start showing him this technology, and it's like, wait a minute, FBI has a Stargate? They've got like this big, huge round thing. And you're like, where where are we going with this thing? And then as he's starting to piece the puzzle together, he goes to her apartment. Like somehow he becomes fixated on her. And then he goes to her apartment and there's a voice message from him on her voice machine. So now you're like, all right, what the hell is going on? I was in.
And he left a message on her refrigerator that he could find, said you could save her.
Well, he didn't know that he did that at first. So right, this is all one big time.
Deja vu, right?
But he never said, wait a minute, this seems familiar to me. It's just they start using this technology to look in the past to try and find the guy who did this, who is actually played by Jim Caviezel. And I didn't recognize him at all, but I just know him from, he was Jesus Christ and
Passion of the Christ, yes.
Right. And at one point they tell him, you can't rewind this, but then they go against that, and at one point they do rewind it. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just said you...
But the big what the hell moment is when Denzel picks up the laser pointer and points it at the screen that they're watching, right. And she sees it in the video.
And then he loses his mind. He's like, wait, what the hell is going on here? Right. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we can also send things back in time. And then you're just like...
But, even if you buy that, how can she see him laser pointing? He's just pointing it at a screen.
Right.
I don't...
Yeah. They did try to explain it away that it was some kind of a wormhole, Eisenstein, Rosenbridge technology.
Say what?
Yeah, it was very convoluted. And it didn't really make any sense. But if you just go with it, it does. It's a very exciting movie. And at one point, there's a car chase where he's chasing a guy 4 days in the past. That's a production nightmare. How he's using these goggles to see this guy in real time from 4 days ago to track where he went.
And he's killing people on the highway.
And he's running over cars left and right, because what he's seen in the vision goggles is from 4 days ago when there was no one on the streets. Now all of a sudden there's people and cars everywhere.
Yeah.
They're directing him. And it's bad. It's crazy. It's well produced. It's well done. And I think that would have been a production nightmare.
And Denzel carries you through this, because you're totally with him throughout the whole movie. You don't really think at the time, well, what are the consequences of him destroying all these cars that are coming towards him on the highway?
Right.
But he dead? Does he kill?
Right. Yeah. You're inadvertently killing people while trying to stop this guy from killing people. And they send a note back. So his boss goes missing, Larry. And then they realize that his car was on the ferry. So now he's like, well, wait a minute. Larry was on vacation. We haven't seen him in 4 days. I just happened to be in Larry's office 4 days ago. And they send a note to Larry's office. They transmit it from the present to 4 days ago on his desk, giving him warning about something with the ferry and that you need to show up here. So of course Larry shows up and he immediately gets killed. And I'm like, so you got your partner killed. You got your guy. That's why he's dead. And
couldn't these messages be a little bit more specific? Like especially the one.
No, it was very cryptic, right?
I'm coming from the future. You got to go to this ferry right now. At this
time.
Don't
sell the car.
Right, don't sell the car. Yeah, I think that's Doc Brown's first rule of time travel, which is I don't want to know you. You don't want to know your future, but it's like you're doing everything to try and tell them what's going to happen. But by doing that, you're making it happen. So everything that they're not changing anything. Everything that they do plays out. And that is one thing that's very well done with this movie is that like when he's in her apartment, there's blood everywhere, there's gauzes, and they're trying to piece this all together. And then as the movie unfolds and he actually goes back into the past, they actually transfer his body into the past, and everything that he saw, he caused. So he's not changing anything.
And all that blood is his blood because he gets shot at one point. And he goes back
at one point, when he's in, right, you actually get him, one of the guys, when he goes to her apartment and he's snooping around, and then later he brings in a forensics, and they're like, dude, did you forget how to be a friggin' agent? Your fingerprints are all over this place. And I'm like, oh, he killed her. That was my first initial thought. He killed her. But that's not how it played out.
Now, how did they manage for him to wake up in a hospital when they send him back? Because
I don't know. That didn't make any sense. And it's like, so you have 4 days, but you're in the hospital for 3. You're kind of screwed for time.
And he's got the message, revive me, written on his chest. I'm like, don't you want to go back with no shirt on? What if they don't rip your shirt?
Open. This guy's, I don't know what's going on. I mean, there's so many leaps in logic, but I give them credit for taking this whole time travel thing to all new levels because it is just
And it is kind of in the same way that they take it in Avengers Endgame. It's kind of the same concept, the way that they treat how you change a various timeline and create a new timeline if you're doing different things. But
he's not creating a new timeline.
It's true.
And that's why this movie holds together for me until the end. Because they give it a happy ending and it ruins it. They everything that they set up and established. No, everything that they established, that it's not, it doesn't matter what he's doing, he's fulfilling whatever he's already seen. So the ending is a complete jump from all of the rules that they set up.
Now, you know what would have been like bonkers if they actually had the future him and the present him interact, which they didn't.
Well, the universes would have exploded.
Yeah.
We know that from Back to the Future too. You can't. And I will say, I hate bad CPR in movies, but it just happens all the time. He's in a hospital, and that girl is like barely touching him, trying to revive him.
But what is funny, when they rip his shirt and they see that message, the doctor's like, well, that's weird.
Right. So if he goes back in time and he saves her, there's no crime. And if there's no crime, then they can't track the bad guy. So to me, she has to end up dead at the end of this.
The crime is that attempted terrorism, right? The guy still planted the bomb.
Yeah, I don't know.
See, this is the beauty of the movie, right? That you're trying to like work the whole thing out. How does this work? How is this possible? Is this even possible?
Yeah, I want to know because, like I said, he does go back in time, and now he's fighting to save her. And you go right back to the beginning of the movie. So if you go back and watch that opening sequence of all this chaos with the sailors running on, it's really chaotic. Would you see them? Would you actually see them in that scene? Because he goes back in time. And doesn't he have a watch? Why do you have to take that alarm clock to know what time it was? He's carrying an alarm clock around with him. He's trying to save the world. And he's carrying an alarm clock. They don't have watches in 2006.
Now, the great thing is that they don't really have to do this to catch the bad guy. In the present, they already have him. They've got him dead to rights.
Right, yeah, they already have him, right. He just wants to save the girl. He becomes obsessed with her to the point where it's a little uncomfortable when they're watching her in the shower. And the one girl on the team, she's like, do we really need to see the girl taking a shower?
Because,
yeah, they're all kind of like salivating, going, yeah.
Denzel's salivating along with the other guys, right? It's not like he has any...
No, he was even worse. Like, he was the one who's like, I gotta go save this girl.
Yeah. But there's a great scene between Denzel and Jim Caviezel in the prison where they're across each other at a table.
Anyone who tries to stop it from happening will cause it to happen. And that's what you don't understand. So you better have some divine intervention, buddy. You're gonna need it. You better have some KY. You're gonna need it.
That made me laugh out loud, that joke.
But again, the car running with the music playing, like all of that is set up in the very opening scene of the movie. And then you see that it's him and her manipulating this whole event. So to me, to save her at the end, and now, spoiler alert, she's handcuffed to the steering wheel of the car. He's in the car. They drive it in. They now have the bomb. They drive the bomb off the ferry. It blows up. She somehow makes it out, but he doesn't.
Yeah, it's true.
She was handcuffed to the steering wheel.
Did he get her? Did he get her out of the handcuffs at any point before they drove off?
I think he must have.
Yeah.
But then he dies in the explosion. He saves it, and then as she's on the shore, here comes Denzel from the beginning of the movie, walks up to her, introduces himself. So.
And it's him from the beginning because he puts his hands over his face. So
yeah, and he's got the same shirt. He's got the sunglasses.
From the beginning of the movie.
Right.
Deja Vu.
Yeah, but it's not Deja Vu because he's now changed. There's no ferry explosion. So why is he even there?
Well, there almost was a ferry. There was an explosion.
Almost.
There was an underwater bomb explosion with that.
He was there pretty quick.
Truck, yeah.
I don't know. Apparently, the screenwriters were not happy with the final result. They felt that they spent too much time on the action and explosions. But I thought it was a fair mix. Like I said,
spend more time on that stuff.
I enjoyed the hell out of this. I thought it was kudos to you, Mike, for pulling this out because this was fun to watch. And like you said, you can't go wrong with Denzel Washington.
No.
And except for the fact that they completely negated on all the rules of time travel that they established in this movie just to save her at the end. I didn't like it. That to me not dropped it down a bucket. Yes. And there's a scene where they're on the ferry and they're having a shootout and he's underneath the car and he sees the bad guy's legs. Just shoot him in the feet. How come people don't know. Just shoot him in the leg. So yeah, this was a surprise. This was very well done.
This was kind of like watching a CSI episode with a little bit of sci-fi and Denzel.
Yeah, it is a weird sci-fi. It's very ambitious. It's a sci-fi detective crossover, right? It's like taking two different genres and mashing them together.
Now, from what I remember of this being in theaters, it was really advertised as an action movie. I don't think that this.
Yeah, they were a dime a dozen, so you didn't really know what you were getting. I do remember of it, but I've never seen it until now. I will say I've been to New Orleans 3 times. I love it down there. But Bourbon Street on a regular night is just a cesspool. I can't imagine what it's like on Mardi Gras. Oh, and there is that one scene where it was like the next morning and like the Bourbon Street is just covered in, people are hosing down puke and piss and everything else. It's pretty nasty. But I do love that town.
So did the filmmakers. It was dedicated to the people of New Orleans.
So, Mike, since this was your movie, did it fulfill your, because you said you had it on your list?
Yeah, I did. You're absolutely right. Anything with Denzel Washington, and he owns the screen. And there were a couple of twists in there. So, you're just on for the ride with this thing, right?
Yeah.
It just keeps moving. It keeps changing. It keeps you engaged. So, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. If you're willing to buy in on the time travel thing, then just go with it. Because it is fun.
The one thing that I had trouble wrapping my head around when there's that one point when they're looking at Paula Patton's character and Denzel point blank asks everybody in the room, is she dead? Is she dead right now? And they all look at each other. No, she's not.
Yeah,
and that just blows your mind. I'm like, okay, how does that work? Okay, she's not dead in the past.
You just pulled her out of the river.
Yeah. Missing
fingers, but you're telling me she's not dead. Yeah.
I just want to be remembered for picking this film when we get to Raggedy Ann and Andy.
Hey, Mike, you were the one that loved Jack and the Beanstalk, remember? Don't count that out.
Oh, man. Do I need to be enhanced when I watch Raggedy Ann and Andy?
Hey, let's get buckets first before you start throwing shade on Raggedy Ann and Andy, okay?
I'm going 3.5.
3.5.
I would have gone higher. I would have gone higher if they stayed true to that she stayed dead. You can't change the past. Doc Brown said that.
Let's hear it, Jim.
3.25.
Oh, absolutely 4 buckets for me.
There you go.
No, so on par with Men in Black.
Weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. I definitely like this much better than Men in Black. It makes you think. It was a fun movie. It kept you engaged.
And again, 3 is not a bad rating for me because
out of 5. No.
3 is a good, solid movie, enjoyable, and I went up a little bit more than that. So kudos to Denzel and
and poor Tony Scott because he's no longer with us. Correct?
Yeah, it's true.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't look that up. I don't know what this was. If this was one of his last movies, I don't remember when he actually died.
You know what it also kind of reminded me of was that movie Frequency, which came out prior, and that was Jim Caviezel as well with Dennis Quaid, where the dad and son are communicating in the past and in the present, kind of a thing.
Yes, it was.
So there's like a whole subgenre of these movies out there. Once I started, Enemy of the State is not really a time travel thing, but it does tap into that technology. The idea that it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, we can find you. That just feeds into the conspiracy.
Yeah, the privacy recriminations of this were never really brought up, like that they're looking at this woman take a shower.
Right.
You got a warrant for that?
Yeah, no, yeah. So
there you go.
Well done. I liked it. We didn't do our confessional.
Confessional, yes.
Confessional.
What did we decide on?
What did we decide on?
What movie property deserves its own theme park ride? You said Men in Black has its own ride?
You didn't know that? Universal.
Is that Universal? That's in Universal?
Yeah.
What is the ride?
You get in a car, you're in an open car, and it's kind of like one of those carnival games where you're shooting at the target and you're knocking over the cardboard cutouts.
Oh, so it's
with like an air gun.
It's a Toy Story. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like Toy Story at Disney, but it's an immersive world all around you of animatronic aliens, and you're going through a New York street where an alien spaceship has crashed, and there's aliens all around you, and they all have targets on them, and you have to shoot them.
But not all aliens are bad. I wouldn't be shooting them up.
Well,
I guess I did know, but I didn't. I did know, but I didn't know.
So, and of course, Rip Torn is there. That kind of he guides you through it, as does Will Smith.
You missed it. You missed him in this movie, right?
You do, yeah.
You do miss now that you brought him up.
So that's what that confessional idea came from, is that Men in Black has a ride at Universal that I've been on many times, but apparently Jeff has not.
Right. How about Star Trek?
Oh.
There you go.
Right? I mean, you get all of this for Star Wars and all of these other big franchises, but is there anything out there at all for Star Trek?
No.
Universal, go back in the 90s, because I was on. You could do a live action Star Trek. This was right after I think it was 90, and they had a fully set Enterprise bridge, and you could go out and you wore the costumes and you acted out and you interacted with other actors and you acted out scenes, but then they would cut in scenes from the movies, and you got to transport and you got to get thrown around the ship from left to right. But that was about it. That was our augmented reality back in the 90s.
Now,
and then
where
you had
was
to buy
this?
the VHS tape. This was Universal.
Really?
Universal Park out in California.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my first honeymoon. That was out there somewhere. I still have the VHS somewhere in the archives.
Yeah, you would have to do that for a Star Trek ride. It would have to incorporate the bridge of the Enterprise some way, somehow.
So, but now it could all be done, like Mike said, you could all do it augmented reality, whether it's augmented or virtual, put on a headset and, and enter these worlds, fight the Gorn. That'd be fun. That was your idea, Mike? That was it? Star Trek? Okay. Star Trek. All right. Well, you mentioned Star Wars, and unfortunately that's actually come to realization, so I can't choose that. But I do have an immersive, character-driven storyline where you can interact with real-world actors and get involved. You ready for this? So hold on. Go back a bit. So in Star Wars, in Galaxy's Edge, you have actors and actresses running around as characters that you can interact with. And you can go on adventures with them, ask them questions, just like role-playing games or whatever, and you can get involved with the Resistance, you can get involved with the New Order, and you can follow these characters. So why not take that premise and just do an actual Westworld theme park, right? Real world actors in an environment where you can choose to go on a gold rush. You can go drive some cattle, maybe chase some fugitives. No soliciting of concubines, though. It's a family.
I was going to say, would they include prostitutes as well?
No. But imagine if you could actually fight alongside the rebelling robots and help free them from the park. That would be fun.
That would be. Yeah.
So that was my idea. I had a second idea, which would be more augmented reality, which is a Matrix-themed interactive, where you would have to fight to defeat the agents and free human race.
That would be nice, right?
So, yeah, if anyone's not familiar, so there's a difference between virtual reality and augmented reality. Augmented reality, you're still wearing a helmet, but you're in a real-world environment. So you have physical steps, you have stairs, you have poles, things that you can touch, but on your headpiece, they're wrapped in graphics. So if you're hiding behind a tree, it looks like a tree, but you can physically touch it, and it doesn't feel like a tree, because you can probably change that to an alien environment. You can change it to any other. But yeah, so you can run upstairs, you can chase them through the Matrix, and you can have some fun. So those are my two.
So I would I'm going to go live action and animated property, because I think Disney would be able to get their hands on both of these properties. First of all, James Bond. Why don't they have any kind of a James Bond ride anywhere that you could get, maybe in the Aston Martin, any vehicle that he's got. But I would think that the Aston Martin would be the most iconic.
Oh, yeah, you could go through the whole movie franchise. Imagine that.
You could, yeah. You could have every villain. You could have Richard Kiel as Jaws in there.
I just saddle up with Octopussy. Where's Jeff? We lost him 2 hours ago.
You could have Oddjob, right? Throwing the hat at you. It's the possibilities are endless. And I think that's considered United Artists now, but MGM did have the rights. And as we know, Disney and MGM are hand in hand. So I think James Bond.
That'd be cool when you get to the scene where you have to defibrillate yourself in the car glove compartment.
From Casino Royale, yes.
Yeah. That would be fun. Clear.
And my second choice would be animated. I don't think Disney has ever utilized WALL-E to any great extent.
WALL-E.
I think that would be a great ride. I think they could actually maybe retrofit Mission Space to be a WALL-E ride, because there's that great scene where Eve's ship that brings her to Earth takes off and goes back to the Axiom. So as it is now, Mission Space is leaving Earth and going to Mars. So you could easily, rework that animation.
Could I just be one of the fat humans that sits around with no
spine?
spine?
You could do that too, yeah.
I would love that.
They just
all
give
day
you a
long.
drink and a hamburger,
Big
and then you just sit in this cart.
gulps.
Yeah, just
Oh,
tell you
yeah.
to eat it, and that's it.
That's right.
That would be the ride.
I'm all for that. Nice.
Because it's very curious that
All
some
right.
of the rides that they do green light, like the Tron light cycles, as much as, as we love Tron, it's very curious that they would base an entire ride based on that movie, which means something to us as 40-something.
Antiquated? Are you pointing out antiquated? Right, because we'd probably break a hip if we rode that ride.
I know. It's people like us that are on the board. Like, let's do Tron. Come on.
But the thing
Tron.
is, but those things have got to take years to. I mean, look how long Avatar. No one's even going to care when that new Avatar movie comes out.
I know. So
Pandora's
those are my
going.
answers. James Bond and
Nice.
Wally.
I like it. Star Trek. I like the Star Trek one. There's a lot of possibilities there. Cool.
there you have
Good
it.
answers, boys.
So next week, as we just teased a little bit, we are going down the animated route because we have Toy Story 4 to review.
Toy Story 3 is the perfect ending, so I am very on edge as to how they're going to
I can't see how they can top that ending of Toy Story 3.
No. Toy Story. My son still makes fun of me because I took him to a birthday party and I sat in the theater behind them and bawled like a baby. Especially when Andy gives away his toys. I'm like,
I can't watch that. I can't watch it anymore.
Dude, you're going to be buying those things again in 20 years when you're at an antique fair going, I used to have this, Woody.
Because whenever Toy Story 3 has been on before the ending, I'm like, can we turn this off now, please? Can we turn this off? We don't need to see the last 5 minutes.
It's crazy. You can't. I don't know how they can do it.
Now, as a classic feature, and you may think that this term classic is very loosely used in this case, we're going back to one of my childhood favorites, 1977's Raggedy Ann and Andy. The subtitle is A Musical Adventure. This is a very hard to find movie. It hasn't really been made available since the early 80s since it was on VHS, but it is on YouTube, free for everybody to see. So that's how we're going to watch this. Yes.
I predict this will be the end of this podcast.
Now, again,
is she dead?
We can't really do this. Just being predictable every week and going with the safe choices. I think it's just as enjoyable for us to go back and forth about what some may perceive as a crappy movie, just as much as it is to have a great movie. Because how boring would life be if you liked everything all the time? Come on.
No, well, like you said before, listen, just because we like something doesn't mean that you should like it, or if we don't like it. I mean, that's what this is all about, which is movies that affect you. I mean, there's a lot of great movies that I don't like. And there's a lot of crappy movies that I love. So it is what it is.
Now, you guys are going to see that this ties in very closely with the whole Toy Story conceit. And it may be said that this was the setup for Raggedy Ann and Andy was borrowed very heavily for the Toy Story movies.
Interesting.
Make your own assumptions after you guys see it.
This is the one with the big floppy camel?
Yes.
Right? Because I do remember him.
The camel with the wrinkled knees is his official title.
That's his name.
Yeah.
That's pretty long-winded. You could just call him Camel?
I don't know if they actually refer to him with a name.
All right. Well, listen, as evident by this week's episode, sometimes we like the classic better than the current.
Sometimes we do. Now, Jet, when we reviewed Jack and the Beanstalk, which was another childhood favorite of mine a few weeks ago. Now, this was an anime version of Jack and the Beanstalk that I remember fondly from showing on HBO over and over and over again in the late 70s, early 80s. Mike remembered it from watching it along with us. Jeff did not. So I'll be interested to see if the same thing plays out here or not, if you guys have any repressed memories of this film. So we'll see.
If they're repressed, I want them to stay repressed.
Mike, do you want the neuralizer now?
So there you go. So next week, join us.
Toy Story 4 and Raggedy Ann and Andy. Do you think there's anybody out there who's excited that we're going to cover Raggedy Ann and Andy? I would love to hear that. Somebody go like, dude, I love this movie. I can't believe that someone else likes it as well.
Let's see. Yeah, if anybody feels that way, please email us. TMIpodcast2018@gmail.com.
And if
maybe Sci-Fi Channel will be so excited they'll bring them back and they'll just make them homicidal maniacs.
But I think if anyone wants to lobby against us reviewing this, please,
please do so.
Yeah, do that too. Do that too.
5 days, please. Yeah. Save Mike. All right, right turn.
That's it, gentlemen.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
don't you guys just keep talking?